So this pork has been in this roaster for about 3 hours, and it's not quite tender yet. The pork is cooked, but we want to get it to where when it's torn at, it'll easily fall apart, and that is not yet here. And with the amount of meat that we have here, it'll probably take a couple more hours until this pork actually falls apart so that we can prepare the Kalua pig. I chose not to use my large oven because that would really heat up the house. So I'm just going to use this little roaster, and I'm cooking this at 250 degrees, nice and slow. And it could take 4 to 5 hours because I have quite a few pounds of pork roast in the roaster. So it's been about 6 hours that I've had my pork roast in the, I don't know what they call these things, roaster oven. I had it at 250 degrees for 4 hours, and then I jacked it up to 325 for the last 2 hours. And we're going to check it out and see how it goes. Now, if you want a really good Kalua pig, it needs to be able to just tear apart like this. That way you can shred it. So this is ready to be shredded. Now, normally I would cook this with garlic, liquid smoke, and salt. I chose not to this time because I didn't want everything just to run off the meat and end down here at the bottom. So I'm going to add all the ingredients after the fact, and that's going to work out just fine. Now, because this is actually for a party, I'm going to hold back some of this meat and shred it and not add any salt for those individuals who might be on a salt restricted diet. And so this is naturally, this is going to be gluten-free because there's no ingredients in here that would contain flour anyway. So naturally, Kalua pig is gluten-free from the get-go, but we're going to make some of this a low salt. And so we're going to go ahead and shred this up and then get ready to put it, add the garlic, some salt, and liquid smoke to this. Now, when I lived in Hawaii, we just go down and dig a big hole, line everything with banana leaves, and buy a pig and do it the real way. A quick little story that I can share with you is when I was back in about 1969, I was in 5th grade, and a friend of ours was the cameraman for the first Hawaii 5-0. And there was a time that they had a cast party, and all the actors came over and all the set people, the crew people came over to his house, which was just right off the beach. And we had a real luau. And at a real luau, they used all the pig, a lot of the fish is raw, a lot of raw squid, raw fish. That's before sushi became popular. Jack Lord actually came, and I got to meet Jack Lord. And his last name was Ahuna, Mr. Ahuna, the cameraman. And it turned out that Jack Lord's birthday was like 2 weeks from the date of the luau. And so I actually baked Jack Lord a cake for his birthday and gave it to Mr. Ahuna, and he gave it to Jack Lord. And in return, Jack Lord gave me 3 of his signed scripts from the Hawaii 5-0 series. One of the favorite ones I received was, I think it was called King Kamehameha Cloak Blues. And he had all these notes and everything in it, and it's one of my cherished memories of getting this from Steve McGarrett, the real Steve McGarrett. So anyway, luau's have a fond place in my heart, and it's a great family activity, neighborhood activity to have Kalua pig with as many authentic foods you can get that would be somewhat Hawaiian. Hawaiian food is kind of an interesting term because Hawaii is such a big melting pot. There's a lot of different types of food that's considered luau food. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and shred this up and add the ingredients, and we'll go to the next step. I had some camera issues, so I wasn't able to film this from the beginning, but I want to kind of show you how I cook this. And you can do this in an oven. I prefer to do this in a roaster. But I have a couple of racks here that I set my my pork roast on, and I can just lift this out. The stuff is still quite hot. You can see the racks I had here, and underneath the racks I actually had canning lids. I used the canning lids to raise the racks off the bottom. And originally I lined the roasting pan, so I sprayed it, I lightly oiled it, and I lined it with aluminum foil. I put 6 canning lids in on the bottom, and then the racks on top of that, and then I put in about a quarter deep worth of water to help steam everything. So that's what I rested my food on so that it couldn't get burned by the heat of the roasting pan. So let me put this aside. And this is my pork roast. This is like one big huge piece. You can see that this is falling apart really good. We're just going to claw at it and rip it apart and shred it up. And I'm not going to throw my liquid away from the roasting pan, because we're going to add some of that liquid back into the Kalua pig to keep it nice and moist. The more this is shredded, the more juice and flavor the meat will hold. So take your time, shred it as much as you can. Don't try to shred it in the food processor, that will really destroy it. But if you cook it right, this will shred pretty good. Once this cools down a bit, I'll be able to shred it by hand, but right now it's just way too hot. So we're going to let this cool down, and then we're going to go ahead and add the other ingredients. I have all the ingredients together, so the pork is all shredded, and I have about 4 cups of the drippings from the pork roast. I have some salt, I have some liquid smoke, and this is actually hickory flavor, but they have different flavors. And you can either use garlic cloves and crush them, or I have the minced garlic here, and I also have the powdered garlic here. I'm probably going to use a little bit of both. So now, since I started off with 8 pounds of pork roast, you really don't know what you're going to end up when you're all done, and I really can't tell you how much salt and how much garlic and smoke to put in here. So it's really going to be soup to taste. But just go a little bit at a time, because if you put too much in, you can't take it back. So I wish I could actually tell you what the ingredients, or how much the ingredients are going to be to put in here, but you're just going to have to use your best judgment and just season to taste. Because some of my guests have certain dietary requirements, I'm going to leave out the salt, and I'm just going to put it away for now so I don't accidentally salt it, because I need to have some of this that's going to be salt free. So we're going to go ahead and start with the smoke, with the garlic powder, or the garlic, and then with the broth to get it to that flavor, and then I'll add the salt. Well, before I add the salt, I'll remove some of this and put it aside, and then salt the rest of the food. And you're going to have to be, I don't want to say liberal in putting these ingredients in, but it's going to take a lot, because this meat will absorb a lot of it. So just do a little bit at a time, and then do a little bit of a taste test and see how things come out. And more garlic. And more smoke. And more liquid. So this has now been seasoned with everything but salt. So it tastes really good. So what I'm going to end up doing, I'm going to take a portion of this, put it aside. So this is going to be my salt-free Kalua pig. And then I will add salt to the rest of it for the rest of us. And just a little bit at a time. Okay, the salt's been added, the garlic's been added, the smoke's been added, the liquid's been added, and this tastes absolutely wonderful. So, we have this along with teriyaki chicken, potato salad, coconut cake, and pog. You know what pog is? P-O-G. Passion fruit, orange, and guava. It's going to be a good party. This is what's left of the Kalua pig. It went very well. Our luau was very successful. Had more people show up than we thought, but we had plenty of food, had good entertainment, and now it's time to take care of the leftovers. So this is probably enough. We'll have to see, maybe about a tray and a half. So we'll have to see how much of this meat is left over. I think it may end up being 2 trays. I think we're going to have 2 trays here. I can't remember if I referred to this as pulled pork or Kalua pig, but it's one and the same. Yeah, we're definitely going to have 2 trays worth. This is something that's really good to freeze dry, because once it's done it has very little fat, some salt, but not enough to affect freeze drying. So this is going to be the rest of our Kalua pig, and I'll post the recipe up on how to make it. Pretty simple recipe, although it takes 5 to 6 hours to get the pork so softened it can just be ripped apart. So this will go into the freezer to pre-freeze it, and then into the freeze dryer it will go, and then we'll bag it up. A couple other foods we had left over was teriyaki chicken and potato salad. This is my wife's potato salad. It's a fantastic recipe handed down through a couple of generations from my wife, and if I can get her permission, I'll post this. This potato salad is awesome. Now, so I'm going to be freeze drying some of the leftover luau food. Now, with the teriyaki chicken, this is a pretty simple recipe. Soy sauce, ginger, brown sugar. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. But when we made this is gluten-free. We were able to find a soy sauce, and I think it's the Walmart brand of soy sauce that does not contain wheat. So you can't tell the difference whether or not this has wheat soy sauce or soy sauce that doesn't have wheat, but this was actually gluten-free. Now the teriyaki chicken will freeze dry really good. This is bone-in thighs, so we'll have to cut the meat off the bones to freeze dry it. Now, potato salad, I have freeze dried this in the past. It does not do very well. I mean, it will freeze dry, but the texture of the food after it's freeze dried, you can feel the oil on your fingers. So it'll freeze dry, but it's not going to be like a 20-year food. You could probably use it maybe 2, 3, 4 years. If you're going to freeze dry potato salad, I suggest you vacuum seal it with an oxygen absorber to get as much life as you can out of it. Just don't put it in a regular bag and pop in an oxygen absorber. So this will basically be leftovers for the rest of the week. I will not freeze dry the potato salad, but the leftover teriyaki chicken I will, and I'll put the recipe for the teriyaki chicken at the end of the video. Now, you're probably saying, well, if this is luau food, what is potato salad doing in Hawaiian food? Well, the Hawaiian, what is the definition of a Hawaiian? Is it someone that's born in the state of Hawaii, or is it someone who has a descendant of the Hawaiians? Hawaii is probably the biggest melting pot out of any of the states, or probably any of the other countries in the world. When I lived in Hawaii, I went to school with Filipinos, Vietnamese, Laotians, Thais, Maoris, Fiji, Tahiti, Samoa, Tonga, Hawaii, Japan, China. I mean, you get all these people coming together in one big melting pot. And this is basically, this is the contribution of the Caucasians, or the haole, so to speak. So a luau is going to have all different kinds of food. And so you could say that the teriyaki chicken is what the contribution is from the Asians, where the pulled pork or the Kalua pork is actually something that goes back into the Polynesian people for hundreds, if not thousands of years. Other popular foods that you can find at a luau would be like lomi salmon, green salads, fresh fruit like pineapple, watermelon. So a luau is a little bit of everything, and it basically celebrates the melting pot of the Hawaiian Islands. And as a final note, the beverage that we offered during our luau was watered and, come on, think about it, Hawaiian punch. I'm going to go through all my teriyaki chicken. These are all thigh pieces, so I'm going to slice off what I can, and then I'll have to just debone by hand the remaining meat that's packed to the bone. I've gone through and deboned all the thigh meat from our teriyaki chicken, and this is ready for the freeze dryer. My leftover luau food is out of the freeze dryer. So we had a big neighborhood luau, probably had about 800 people there. It was very successful. This right here is a teriyaki chicken. This was sliced thigh meat that had teriyaki sauce on it. And then the Kalua pig, which was basically pork roast that was really, really slow cooked. And this had salt and smoke flavoring and garlic added to it. So I'm ready to bag this up, but before I bag it up, I will take a bit of a sample here and we'll reconstitute it and see how that turns out to be. But if it's anything like I imagine, it's going to be wonderful. These are my samples of luau meat. I have the teriyaki chicken here and the Kalua pork here. I just have some hot water right out of the tap. And I'm just going to pour some water on these, not too much at the beginning, and let them sit. And I'll continue to add a little bit of water until it comes back to the consistency I want. And then when it's just about to that point, I'm going to cover these with plastic wrap and heat them up in the microwave. And that will help, that'll hold the steam in as it heats up, and it'll make sure that the rest of the moisture gets forced into the rest of the food there. These samples just came out of the microwave. You can kind of see the steam still inside. I'm going to go ahead and open these up, and you can just smell the smell. Oh, it's almost like the luau was just today. We're going to try the Kalua pork. Very good. And the teriyaki chicken. This is as good as the day it was served. Now, one thing, if you ever make Kalua Pork, if you want to make one of the best sandwiches you ever had, and unfortunately, I don't have any hoagie rolls or any buns, but take Kalua Pork and put it on like a sandwich or a sandwich bun, and then put coleslaw on top of it. So Kalua Pork and coleslaw will make one of the best sandwiches you ever made. It is just absolutely wonderful. I have neither, unfortunately. So anyway, I'm looking forward to the day when I can have more of this. But this came out really good. And reconstituting it was pretty much a no-brainer. It came back almost instantly. Well, this just gives you one idea of what you can do with your freeze dryer and with Hawaiian foods or foods that come out of a luau. Thank you for your time. Please subscribe, and I'll send you another video soon. Often when I post these videos about freeze drying food, a lot of people put in the comments, but I would include the recipes. So a lot of the recipes for the luau that we had are included in these recipes. Plus I put a bunch of other recipes in here. Now this is cookbook was created by the Kahuku Elementary School back in the 70s, and I attended Kahuku High School. Kahuku High School pretty much took care of the north end of the island of Oahu, and basically what some people call the North Shore and like Sunset Beach, that is all part of the Kahuku area. And the people of the North Shore, the north end of the island, are pretty much the salt of the earth. You know, you have Honolulu on the leeward side, and you have Kahuku on the windward side. And I mean, they're just humble people. This is the food they ate. So if you really want to have a taste of Hawaii, you know, you don't put, you know, cream of chicken soup on rice with some pineapple and call it a Hawaiian haystack. But these recipes are what they ate on a daily basis, and they would work very well if you want to have a Hawaiian dinner or have a luau. So, you know, I'm just going to go ahead and play these through. If there's something you like, you can just pause the screen and maybe take a print screen and go ahead and print it out. But these are some of my favorite recipes, and this cookbook is probably about the only thing I really have left over from my days in Hawaii. So I hope you enjoy this.